Hey there, Grandpa Jim coming to you again, and today what we're going to do is we're going to take you through and show you how to replace a receptacle, or plug as most people call it, and a switch. These are common things that you're going to need to replace at home. Either they get broken or over time you decide you want a different color, you want a different style, you just want to change them. So this is a very quick process. I'm going to get right into it. So we're going to start with the tools. Okay, so what we have here, don't need a lot of tools to replace this. If you have a drill, electric drill, screw gun, whatever you want to call it, that's great. Otherwise, you can just have a screwdriver, utility knife. This is one of my favorite types because it closes up really quickly. Make sure that this is sharp so you don't cut yourself. Volt ohm meter. This is a digital one. These are a little bit more expensive than the analog ones, but well worth it over time. This covers AC and DC voltage as well as ohms and amps. You can see this is a classic. It's from Radio Shack, which no longer exists, especially not in the form that it used to. I have different size wire nuts here, but with the size wire that we're going to be dealing with, a good one is the red wire nut. You can see how the diameter of each of these is slightly different. Some are really big. So the red wire nut is a good one to use. It's an all-around good one for dealing with AC circuits. And then some spare wires. Sometimes you can get extra wire that's extra cutoffs at the store. If not, you can always pick up a foot if you need it. It's very inexpensive. And the wire nuts, I forgot to tell you, you can get them just in a little bin like this at your hardware store. And the last thing I forgot to put out here is lineman pliers. So these are really good pliers. It's got a cutter on them as well, and all around usefulness. Mm-hmm. Okay, and what we have here in my chicken scratch, hopefully you can read it, but we'll take you through the explanation. So down here we have, this would be from your breaker panel, the wire coming up into the box. This diagram is a simple one with just a switch and a light. Okay, I will show you the next one with a receptacle, switch, and a light. So we have the wire coming into the box, and from that wire we have the ground going to the switch. The black wire goes to the switch, and the white wire comes out, and we're going to wire nut it to the white wire coming from the light. The black wire from the light we're going to put on the other terminal of the switch. I'm going to tighten that down. And then the light, of course, we have one on the white on one terminal and the black on the other terminal. Doesn't matter which terminal because it's AC. And that's it. This is just 12-2 wire with a ground. It's Romex brand, but that's all there is to it. So you flip the switch opens and closes this black wire and allows the current to flow through and give you light. Now, the next drawing I did is a little bit more detailed because here I have a switch and a receptacle. So what we have is the same thing, Romex 12-2 with a ground coming into the box, and what we have is on the one side of the receptacle, you'll see that there's the ground terminal and two more terminals. That is the easy way to tell where you're going to hook up the white wires. White wire goes with the ground, or green wire. In some cases, you'll have a green wire for the ground. So, white wire from power source, then the white wire going to your light will be at the top of the receptacle. On the other side of the receptacle from the power source, the black wire, and then at the top you're going to have a little pigtail that you create for yourself, and you're going to go from that receptacle to the switch, and then the other terminal on the switch, it's going to go to the black wire that goes to the light. So take a look at it very closely. White wires are on the one side of the receptacle. Black wire from the power source. Black wire going to the switch. Then the other black wire from the switch goes to the light. And then all your grounds you're going to be connecting together. And that's it. Alright, so what I've done here is give you a little tutorial. Is I've made a dummy setup. Actually, it's a functional dummy setup. So what I have is I just have an extension cord running from my outlet to my garage, and then I have an old extension cord that I cut the end off, and I have that run up into a box. This is a double box, and inside the box I have a receptacle and a switch. And you can tell that I was too lazy to go to the store and buy the right cover for this, but I had these laying around, so at least you get the idea. They do make covers that are for a receptacle with a switch combo in a double box. So anyways, what I've done is I've wired it up, so when I connect my two extensions, I can flip on the switch, and that switch goes to a light that I ran in the garage, and the receptacle also works. So if I plug something into there, it will power up. Okay, so now we're going to take it apart. At this point, I have not turned off the power. If you are able to find the circuit breaker and shut it off, if you only have a light switch, you're going to need a second person there with you to yell down and say, hey, it's off. But if you do have a receptacle, what I find works really good is if you blast 80s rock music, and then you go down to the breaker panel and you just flip off the breakers until you hear the music go off, and you know you found the right breaker. But it's always got to be 80s rock music, because that's the best music. Or classic rock. Yeah, we can go with classic rock. Anyways, we're gonna take it apart, and I only have a couple screws on this. So at this point, I have not turned the power off. So with your switch, if the switch is turned on, you'll of course have light if there's power. If there is something hooked up to that switch. So if I were to hook up my meter with the switch on, I'm going to have absolutely no voltage. And here, I'll set this up so you can see that. So I got no voltage there because the switch is on. So the current is flowing through the circuit and not at my meter. So if I turn it off, now if I go between the two, I have 118 volts. If you were to do this and you see something under 100 volts, something under 80, between 60 and 80 volts, chances are you have a wiring problem and not a switch problem. Not 100%, but there's a high likelihood that something happened with your power. So on the receptacle side, because I have this opened up, I can hit both sides. So I have 116 volts, 117 volts on there between the two. So I can also stick it in here with these leads, but it's easier to do that. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to do the equivalent of turning off my circuit breaker. I'm going to unplug my extension cord. So I will double check, make sure I have no voltage here. I have nothing. So now I can feel secure that I'm not going to get zapped. All right, with the power off, we're just going to unscrew switch. And receptacle. And pull it out. Now you can see what we have. So this yellow shielded cable here, that's my source. The white shielded cable is going to my fixture. So what I have is from my power source, my black is going to this side of the receptacle. The hot is always this small blade here. Neutral is always the big one. So remember that when you're wiring it up, you can always take a picture of the existing, but in case somebody installed it originally incorrectly, now you know. This short blade is hot, and hot is always the black. Okay, so if we're replacing the switch, all we're going to do, unscrew the two terminals, the black wires, and unscrew the ground wire, which I did not put one on here. So, switch is off. That's it. Get a new switch, and I'm just going to put it back on like this, and then screw it back down. In this case, what we're going to do is we're also going to replace the receptacle. But before we do that, I want to show you a little tip, a little trick, whatever. So I have my pigtail here. I have enough extra wire, so I'm going to cut off the end. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that hook on there so I can put it back on the switch. So all I'm going to do is rotate that knife around. Pop it off. And this is where these pliers come in real handy, is you're going to stick that wire about halfway in, and you're just going to create a hook around. Now, I'm a left-handed guy, so they say we do everything backwards. So if you're left-handed, pay very close attention to this. Remember, you turn clockwise to tighten things down. So make sure that hook goes on so that when you turn clockwise, it's actually going to wrap it around. Otherwise, if you install it that way, when you tighten it down, it's going to unhook it. So that's all you do with that.
On.
So we're going to put that hook on right. Screw it down. You want to make sure you have a tight connection here. And always pay attention. If you open up the box and you look at your receptacle or your switch, whatever you're replacing, you want to make sure that you're dealing with copper wire. If you don't have copper wire, and the copper wire is this color, if you have aluminum wire can be safe as long as the devices that are connected to it are made for aluminum wiring. But I would recommend that you take and get an electrician in and have them replace the aluminum wiring so that you're not going to have a problem down the line in case somebody accidentally replaces a device that is not made for aluminum wiring. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to replace the receptacle. So the receptacle, we have our ground wire. We're just going to loosen the ground wire. We're going to loosen our two neutrals. And again, long blade, neutral. And we're going to loosen our black wires, which are our hots. And all we're going to do is put them the exact same way on your new receptacle. Once you're done with that, you're going to put these back into the box. And you want to make sure that you get the box or the wires back into the box so that they're not going to break whenever you tighten them down. So start it by hand, even though these are plastic boxes and it could make its own thread. Try to get it back into the same threading. Now I'm going to use my power drill, tighten these back down because they are longer. You can do it by hand like they've done for so many years, but I like a little bit of speed. Now when you have a duplex box like this, it's important that you don't tighten it all the way down because you're going to have a plate that goes over top of it, and you're going to need to loosen these up and get a feel for where they need to be positioned. But in this case, I jerry-rigged it, and I don't need to worry about that. Now when you are putting the plates on, especially if you're using plastic plates like this, I always recommend using a hand screwdriver to tighten these down, because otherwise it's real easy to over tighten these and break them. Now this one's a metal, so I could use my drill for it, but I'm not going to. Alright, so we're back together again. We're going to switch it off. Okay, and now I'm going to turn my circuit breaker back on. At least my pseudo circuit breaker. Flip the switch, and I have light. You can see all the junk in Grandpa's garage. And receptacle. I'm just going to plug in my power air compressor, and I know it works. Alright, so that's about all there is to it. Should be about a half-hour job if you're replacing a receptacle and a switch. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below and I'll answer it. Be sure to like the video and make sure you subscribe and come back again. I will have lots of other tips as we go along. If you own a home, if you rent a home, why would you rent a home? I shouldn't even say that. If you're renting a home, call me. I will help you find a home to buy. You could be throwing money out the door right now, and I can help you find a home to buy. So make sure, even if you don't live in my town, I can help you and help you find a house. So subscribe, like, and I will see you soon. Grandpa Jim signing off.